The opinions and views expressed in the following presentation do not necessarily reflect those of GCR Progressive Internet Radio Management, staff, or our affiliates.
Toto? I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Welcome to Mo Banshee's Lair, Visionary Talk Radio on GCR Progressive Internet Radio. Fear rocking your world.
And welcome to Mo Banshee's Lair, Visionary Talk Radio on GameCon Radio, GCR Internet Radio. We have a spiffy show for you tonight. I'm very excited about it because it's about one of my favorite topics, vampires and movies, and you all know how weird I am, so this is very cool. I want to thank everybody for coming in and listening on the podcast players and on the chat page. I want to welcome you all. I hope everybody is doing well. I know that there's a lot of weird stuff going on with the weather. We went from an unbelievably hot heat wave here in the Northeast to almost fall weather, which was a welcome relief. Please remember, animals need shelter, they need adequate water, food. Please make sure that you keep your eye out for animal abuse. The old Banshee, she worries a lot about animals and children and old people, seniors in the weather. When we were 20, we could stay out in 100 degrees. When you're 80 in your late years, you can't do that anymore. So make sure you go and physically check on your elderly family and make sure they're okay, because they're tough. They won't put the air conditioning on because they don't want to spend the money in that. We do want to extend our sympathies to the country singer Loretta Lynn. Her one daughter passed away from cancer, rather emphysema, and we are very sorry to hear about that. You know her as the coal miner's daughter, Loretta Lynn, and God bless the family. And the verdict is guilty. The woman who starved the dog in New Jersey 2 years ago, finally went to court and pleaded guilty to animal abuse. She left a dog, which is now known as Patrick, tied to a rail, and she went to another state, and somebody found the dog, thought it was dead, shoved it down into a garbage chute, and the man who was dumping the garbage found him, and he still was actually breathing. It is a landmark case, and it has really caused people to shake their heads and wonder what is wrong with people that they can do this to animals. And, we need to be voices for animals and children. We just have to be. That is what we have to do. So if you see an animal in trouble, report it. Please report it to the police. If you suspect somebody moved out of a house, left their animals, please report it. There's a lot of news, but I really am dying to bring our guest on. The little bit of music you just heard was Love Eternal from Bram Stoker's Dracula. And we are talking about vampires in the movie with Charles E Butler, who is an actor and an author, and he's written a book about vampires in the cinema. And Charles, welcome to the Lair.
Thank you very much. I'm really glad to be here.
You have a fascination with the cinema and vampires?
I do have a fascination with cinema, with vampires. Vampires were the first things that I picked up on that took me into the world of fantasy when I was about 6 years old. And it's a thing that's got stronger over the years. Dracula is possibly the greatest character ever invented in fantasy. He's an amazing character.
What film or what book was it that specifically started you off? Did you read Dracula, or did you see a movie, a vampire movie, that was the beginning of the love affair?
Right. No, what actually happened, I was a very ill child, and I had constant visits to hospitals and things, and etc. and things like that. And I was in the waiting room, the doctor's waiting room, and in those days they used to have good magazines on the tables, and I picked one up, and it was the Tomb of Dracula, issue number 2, and it had a cover on by John Severin of a guy in a black cloak, just either swooping down onto a female who was laid on the floor in an old London road. And I opened that book, and the gentleman was pulling a stake from a corpse, and it turned into the black cloak gentleman on the cover. And from that day on, I was a comic book fan and a Dracula fan all at once. And the fascination for the character has never ceased. It's just got stronger and stronger over the years.
For me, my mother worked for RCA. When she came over, she got a job with RCA, and they were making the TVs, and a factory, it was a sweatshop. And so we were lucky enough to get a TV early on. And it started with me in the early 50s, because they were starting to put those old movies like Mark of the Vampire and all the old stuff. They were putting them on the TV on Saturday nights, and we had a show host here called Zachary at Large, and John Zacher. He was the guy who hosted this show, and he always was dressed like a mortician and very strange and funny, but he would host these movies. And, I fell in love with all the old stuff. And, now with the internet, so much is available to us, like the 1925 Vampire one, Carl Theodore Dreyer, Vampire, which is amazing. But your book, you started out with the Cabinet of Caligari, right?
I did, yeah. I started with Caligari, which I've got to stress now. People have got in touch with me time and again and said, Caligari is not a vampire movie. It's nothing to do with vampires, which they're right. They are right. It isn't a vampire movie, but the actual zombies are. You've got to remember, he is an undead corpse. He's been asleep for 25 years. He actually sleeps in a crate like a coffin, and his heart is pierced by true love when he goes after the young heroine, and he can't kill her because of that reason. Just like King Kong couldn't kill Fay Wray, he falls in love with her, pierces his heart, and he drowns in the local ravine in running water. And I believe that Cesar is the type of character that's being used today that forms into these sparkly vampires. You know, the nice personality, the wandering man, the wandering nomad who was looking for eternal love and redemption. Whereas on the other side of the coin, you have the pestilence that was Max Schreck in Nosferatu. And if you try to revive Nosferatu, I mean, really, in today's cinemas, you'd frighten all the clientele. Censorship problems would be horrendous, because he is a pestilence, he's a decaying invader. And that is the best type of vampire for me. Growing up with vampires, those are the best types of vampires for me. I don't really think they should be dressed up as midnight fluff for teenage girls, to be honest.
Yeah, they kind of just totally ruined it for everybody, I think.
Yeah, they took all the fun out of it, really. I mean, when you watch the old Hammer movies, they're like fairy tales. They're built around the scope of fairy tales. You have the Brides of Dracula, which is probably the ultimate fairy tale, and it's just an amazing story. There's the castle, there's the ogre who lives in the castle, there's the princesses that come, you know, and every single level just works in that film. It's possibly the best vampire movie after Nosferatu, and it certainly is one of the most inspirational. And again, David Peel, he plays the Baron Meinster. His character is like the daddy to these sparkling vampires. He's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed mummy's boy. And it never tells you who the Bride of Dracula is, because Dracula isn't in the film. But you certainly get an inkling with David Peel that he could actually be the bride that they're talking about. And it's an amazing film, and as I say, that could morph as well into the teenagers in the Twilight series. But it's a film that can't be beat. It's a brilliant film.
Yeah, Christopher Lee and Karloff, they both called those kind of movies fantasies. They didn't call them horror, they called them fantasies, and I agree, they are fantasies. For me, horror is somebody doing something that someone else could easily do, Chainsaw Massacre and stuff like that, That's horror to me, because that's something a real person can do, and so that's a horror to me. But these movies, they were vampires, and you liked the vampire who was absolutely devoid of consideration of other people. It was always to his own survival. And when I asked you your choices for the best ones, you gave me Max Schreck, Jack Palance, Patrick Bergin, Christopher Lee, Theodore Trout, Louis Jourdan, Mark Warner, Carlos Villares, and Klaus Kinski. And I have to agree, Jack Palance was excellent in the way that he was vicious. I mean, you looked at him, and Dan Curtis, the guy from Dark Shadows, is the one who produced that movie, and he was a mean Dracula, and even Christopher Lee was a mean Dracula, because the original book, okay? Dracula didn't come here specifically because of Mina and falling in love and having missed his lost princess. There is no lost princess in the original book. So that's the first problem that we ran into, because they changed the book into this, he's trying to find his lost love. And really, that wasn't on his mind. He was just a right old bastard, right?
Yeah, for want of a better term, he was. Jack Palance, regardless of the film, Jack Palance actually puts out the best interpretation of Count Dracula from the novel. He isn't made up with the long grey hair and the moustache and everything, but he does the best characterization. The best film on the subject is Louis Jourdan, who did the 1978 double play.
I love that. I have it on video. I have it on video. And anybody, if you can get Louis Jourdan as Dracula, you're gonna love it. He's suave. He's a nobleman, but it's all about him. It's not about I love this girl, you know.
Yep. But how do they explain away the fact that you get a French seducer in Transylvania, dressed in a long black cloth? You know, I mean that is the fantasy of film. It's just amazing, isn't it? That they can get away with things like that, and you sit there for 3 hours and you actually believe what's happening. It's great. That is the best play on the.
I kind of broke it. I kind of broke it into 3 categories as I was thinking about this. Actors who played Dracula, the ones who kind of were ruthless and not a nice person, and it wasn't about seducing the girl because he loved her. Bela Lugosi, his Dracula did not seduce the girl because he loved her. It was a free meal and he needed his minions to protect him. Christopher Lee, of course, he never played a nice Dracula that was in love with the girl. Carlos Villaris, he did the Spanish version of Dracula. Lon Chaney Jr., he played Dracula, and he was not a nice person as Dracula.
No, he did Universal's best Dracula film, actually. Son of Dracula is the best Dracula film, and it's down to the writer, Kurt Siodmak. He really understood the character of Dracula, and it is a pity that Bela Lugosi didn't actually play in that film, because if it had been Bela that was doing that film, it would have been, it would have gone off the scale. It would have been amazing.
Right.
Because Bela had that otherworldly look about him. Lon Chaney was all right, but it was just a belligerent thug, to be honest.
Yeah, he was not a nice Dracula at all, and it was all about coming to the new world. And Count Alucard, thank you, Stan, in the chat, they're helping me out. Duncan Reger, Regehr from Monster Squad. Now that's a kiddie film, but he was a nasty Dracula.
He certainly was. He put everything into that part that he'd seen Bela Lugosi and Christopher Lee do while he was growing up. He said he wanted the part to look good. You know, even though the film was basically for children, he said he wanted the evil of Dracula to come out. And I think he succeeded, because I bet a lot of 12-year-old children had nightmares when they went to see him in that. It was amazing in that film.
When he grabs the kid and says, "I'm tired of you meddling, you little shit," or something like that, and he throws the kid. That was great!
He said, "Give me the amulet, you bitch."
Right. He was great in it. And Richard Foxborough,
Richard Roxburgh in Van Helsing.
Yeah. He was a nasty piece of work. Then you've got the watered down where they're going for the romance. So I put that in another column. Louis Jourdan, of course. Who doesn't love Louis Jourdan? I mean, the guy is beautiful. Frank Langella.
If you're a lady. If you're a lady.
Yes, if you're a lady. Frank Langella is another one. He was the pretty boy,
the
where
pretty boy.
you look.
Yep.
You looked at that and said, come here and bite me anywhere you want, and then Klaus Kinski, he was a little bit different, because they did do where she faked him out in the end, and he was drawn to her in the movie Max Schreck. John Carradine, he kind of was in love with the girl, and put himself in jeopardy by not being careful.
He had a great child line in that, didn't he? John Carradine had a great child line. He used to show them his ring, his jewellery. Now, what's the best way to get a girl? You just show them your jewellery and you're away. He used to show them the secret world in his jewellery. That was amazing. And he got away with it as well.
Yeah, and then my third is Jack Palance and Gary Oldman, because they really did play on the idea that Mina looked like the lost princess. That was the whole crux of those two movies. So you had three kind of groups for movies, and now, of course, we have a Fluff and Puff, Twilights, and Glitter, and it's not the same, is it?
No, it's all gone badly wrong, to be honest, I think. Someone should really write a Dracula script and really bring back the ferociousness of the vampire, because Twilight is okay. I think myself it can be a harmful experience, especially the first one. I did watch the first one, and that seemed to have the message that it's all right to go out with your boyfriend who's a vampire as long as he has you back before dawn. And what's all that about? That was crazy, I thought. It sent out really wrong messages, did Twilight. But it's a hit, I suppose. Everybody seems to like it. Well, no, that's a bit converse. Everybody doesn't seem to like it. It causes a lot of mixed feelings all over the world of Twilight. I suppose that's entertainment.
Yeah, Janet in the chat room is saying Let the Right One In was a great vampire movie. I'm not aware of that one.
Yeah, that's from the book by John Avid Lindqvist, if I get his name correct. He's a Swedish writer. And he wrote the book in 2008, and I read the book, and it is a great book. And what that particular book does is something that Twilight missed. It does bring the melancholy back to the vampire, but it still keeps the rage, and it still keeps the message that, hang on, this guy could be a bit difficult to deal with or to handle in society. But the film, I mean, I've got Let Me In, which is the new Hammer version of it as well, and I haven't watched that yet. But I've got the Swedish version, and it is a really good adaptation of John Avid's novel. I do recommend that anyone who's never seen it to watch it, and I'll let you know what Let Me In's like as well when I've seen it.
Yeah, cool. The original book Dracula is kind of the catalyst for all the cinema vampires. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great story, and you can actually download it in audiobook and read it online. The original book, you can download it and read it. And it's very much different in that, although, what's his name, Francis Ford, whatever, he kind of did it.
Whatever, one of the most powerful men in Hollywood.
Whatever.
I love it.
I'm not an actor.
I love you, that's it. I love that. Francis Ford,
I'm not an actor. Yeah, but he did make the movie like journals. Yeah, he made the movie like journals and the letters, and then now you will hear from, Mina and Lucy's letter and Jonathan's. So he tried valiantly, but still again, he went off on the love tangent, and I don't like my vampires lovey-dovey. I like them to be what they are, animals.
Can I say something about the Coppola version? It isn't my best version. I get loads of people coming up to me. I mean, literally, when it was first out, everybody was coming up to me saying, it's the best version ever of Dracula, it's great, marvelous, and it's not. It is nowhere near Dracula at all. What has actually happened there is James V. Hart, who wrote the screenplay, did exactly with Dracula what he did with his earlier film, which was Hook, with Robin Williams playing Peter Pan.
Right.
And he's read the books, and he's totally misread the plot lines, and he's basically gone off on his own tangents. And I think the Coppola group in general didn't really understand the story of the vampire at all, to be totally honest. And a great opportunity was wasted, because it looks great. The visuals are amazing. It's just an amazingly visual film. The acting from Gary Oldman and from I'm losing the names now. When I know these films backwards and I can't remember the names. But some of the acting is OTT, and a lot of it just seems to me like Francis was saying, yeah, whatever, you just stand there, you do your part, and you say your lines over there, and you'll be fine. And you can't do Dracula like that, I'm afraid. No, it's no way like the novel. It's a good. I actually watched it last night to prepare for this. Now that is something getting me to watch the Coppola Dracula to come on radio. Yeah.
Actually, last week we watched it down the camper. Yeah, we watched it down the camper last week, just because I was brushing up on it. I have to say, one of my newfound gems is the Carl Theodor Dreyer Vampire. It's the German, it's a silent, the words are, it's on YouTube, VAMPYR. I posted it on Facebook today. I love it because you have something that is draining the life out of someone, and it's not a love story. It's not a beautiful vampire that's seducing. It's a creature. It's a vampire, and just like people who suck your life force out of you today, there's nothing charming about it. And I really do like that. Another one of my favorite vampire movies is Mark of the Vampire by Todd Browning. Yes,
that's Todd Browning's best vampire movie. Simply because, and I think it's the same with Browning as it was with Francis Ford Coppola 60 years later, Todd Browning didn't understand the vampire aspect either. He read the script, made his film, put Bela Lugosi in it, but he just had no concept. And when you view the Dracula with Bela Lugosi side by side with Carlos Villarreal, George Melford, who did the Spanish version, knew about his vampires. The cast knew about their vampires. It all comes through the fun that they're having, just playing around with the material and really putting the energy in there. And then you see the Browning version with Bela Lugosi, and it's full of dead silences, slow camera movements, and you just get the inkling that no one really knows what's going on. And that's the same inkling I get with the Gary Oldman version. It's just that they've got this property and they have to make this film, and they're just going through the numbers. But Carl Dreyer's Vampire, that is amazing. I watched that last year for the first time. I saw it on YouTube, and I had to rejuggle my list of top 10s because it's an amazing film, and it does what Mario Bava did with Black Sunday. It takes its vampires back to the old demonic types that are being serviced by the old one, the devil and things like that. It brings all that into play, which is unfortunately missed out a lot in today's vampire stories because they've been split up from vampires into exorcism films like the Emily Rose thing, and all gone off onto different tangents and genres. And it gets confusing sometimes, to be honest, but it's all there in Vampire, without the effects, obviously, but there's some great acting, especially from the girl who changes from frightened creature into vampire's familiar on the bed. That one tracking shot, do you know which one I mean, where she turns around, evilly grinning? I think that's amazing. Vampire's a brilliant film.
See, what the one that I love is where he sees the spirit of the soldier with the one leg. And he gets the spirit gets up, and I'm like, holy crap, that's great, all the victims, their spirits are still there, and the town doctor is supplying more victims, and it's really it's a great movie, and I don't know why they don't try to remake that on that idea, because the vampire is only interested in one thing: surviving, and that's the only thing.
Blood and the soul.
Go ahead.
No, sorry, carry on. I was clearing my throat, actually.
Okay, we're going to go to break, and for the break, I've got Christopher Lee, Count Dracula, and his bride his vampire bride for, and he's explaining what she can look forward to. And then we have a commercial, and then Alicia Bridges, I Love the Nightlife, and that's from Love at First Bite, which is a funny vampire movie with George Hamilton, where he comes to America, and he ends up, trying to fly around his bat, and a family in Harlem thinks he's a black chicken. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy this, and we'll be
first moments, every muscle, every fiber will be afire with torment and agony. In the days to come, you will pray for death. To Jurassic Park.
Well, hello there. This is Stan, inviting you to listen to Jurassic Park, where we dig up the old bones of rock and roll, 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond, and then carefully rebury them. Thursday nights, 8 Eastern, on GCR.
be right. Welcome back to Mo Banshee's Lair, and our guest tonight is Charles Butler. And Charles, you have a lot of books that you've written on Amazon, so tell them where they can find these books and what they are.
Right, the first one is the first one that I wrote. It's the Romance of Dracula. What that actually does, it talks about the major 14 adaptations of Stoker's novel, and it lists every actor from Bela Lugosi right through to Mark Warren in 2006, who did the BBC Wales version in 2006. And it's my own take. You see, I have my own ideas. Like everybody, we go to the movies, we talk about Dracula, and we all have our own definitive ideas of what the character should be. I'm a real old stickler, I'm a real old school type, and I think he should be the violent invader that you get in the book, you know, the decadent corpse that comes and just bites you in the neck. I want to drink your blood, and he takes it. And that is what the book focuses on, which basically is the best Dracula of all. I mean, by default, I say Christopher Lee because I grew up with Christopher Lee. I grew up with all the Hammer reruns and everything else. But as I said earlier, my real favourite in the adaptations of the character is Jack Palance. And there's a great new film that's just come out, and it's an independent film. It's called Dracula, Lord of the Damned. And it's made by Theodore Trout. Now, I urge anyone who's listening, I mean, this is like one of those air raid warnings. Anybody listening, please, you've got to go out and look at this film. It's an amazing film. And it meets Stoker on his own terms. And I watched it again the other night. The things that Mr. Trout puts into that film are excellent. And I'll be reviewing that in an update of Dracula's Romance when I update the book in a couple of years. The other book I have is Vampires Everywhere, The Rise of the Movie Undead. Now what that is, it's a book that stays away from Dracula and talks about the more savage vampires. And in that particular volume you have Chris Sarandon in Fright Night, who turns from a walking dandy into an old derelict corpse. You have Fright Night with Colin Farrell. Again, I call him feral Farrell because he's one of those feral animals. He's uncouth, uncultured, and he just goes for the jugular. Also, there's Near Dark, which in my opinion is possibly the best and most inspirational vampire movie ever made. It's amazing.
Isn't that the one where they drive around in the caravan?
They do. Yeah, it's Lance Hendrickson, Jeanette Goldstein, and Robert Paxton. Bill Paxton, sorry. Robert Paxton, where did he come from? And
I don't know.
They're the most violent vampires to be put on screen, in my opinion. And they don't have fangs, which makes them all the more, ambiguous. They just go for the throat, and any way possible they're trying to get close to us. But they haven't found their own niche because they have to wander the highways. You know, they haven't found a way to conform to society. They just wander the highways like mass murderers, just on the hunt all the time. And that is a great film, and possibly the most inspirational of the modern films that we have. And I finished that book with the Salem's Lot, the two-part Salem's Lot versions. You have the 1979 version, and you have the 2004 version that was rethought by Mikhail Solomon. And both of those versions are excellent. If you haven't seen the new version, watch it without any nods toward the first one, because they are basically two separate series. And I still think, as I say in the book, a definitive Stephen King adaptation is yet to be made. And I think we haven't seen the last of Salem's Lot yet.
I like the original. To me, the original was a lot more scary. I didn't like the second remake because they got you too bogged down with the weirdo people in town, you know?
Yeah.
And I really liked the first one a lot better. But you can't really find the first one. It was aired in like 3 nights, I think, if I remember. That's how long ago it was. And I videotaped it when that happened. Now when you order Salem's Lot with David Soul in it, you usually get a cut down version. So that's a problem. Yeah, and that sucks.
It does, because I have both versions. The shorter theatrical release is on. I've actually got on a VHS with Larry Cohen's supposed sequel, The Return to Salem's Lot. Have you seen that one?
The one?
A Return to Salem's Lot. Have you seen that?
Yeah. That I didn't care to a lot either.
No, it is actually funny if it's watched on its own.
Too much with the people. Yeah, it's too much about the town and the weirdo stuff, you know. Let's just kill everybody and call it good. That's how I like it. Let's just have the vampire do what he does. Kill everybody and be done with it. Move to the next town. You know, it's called, junk control. You're controlling all the losers.
Well, as I say, I have those 2 books, The Romance of Dracula and Vampires Everywhere. And they are available on CreateSpace at Amazon, and in both Kindle and paperback. You know, just click on the links. I mean, my links are all over the place. I've got a proper link that I put on everybody. If I friend someone, say on Facebook, for example, I put a link on their wall. Now that link takes you through to every single thing I have going on the internet at the moment. It's every link for the Romance of Dracula. It's every link for Vampires Everywhere. There's also another book that I would like to plug, and it's not about vampires, not about anything like that. It's called Detections in a Scarlet Vein, and I just want somebody to buy the Kindle. It's only on the Kindle pad. It's 24 pages. It's total nonsense, but it's funny, and I want people to read it. Detections in a Scarlet Vein. It's on Kindle pad. But now let's go back to the vampires.
Okay.
CreateSpace.
I'm going to put the. I'm going to put that link up, and I've been putting the links to the books up there, and that too. The movie Vampires. You in the book, the one with the vampires everywhere thing. You name like the Isle of the Dead with Boris Karloff because the plague is there, and being the time it was in the movie, they think that the plague is actually a vampire. Boris Karloff is starting to suffer from exhaustion, mental fever, and he, in his old, he goes back, he's a soldier, but he ends up slipping backward into the folklore of his people. And what he does is he ends up saying that the one woman is a vampire. So that's why you have that in there. A lot of these, the Mark of the Vampire, in that one, it's murder mystery. And what they do is they use the folklore that the people of this small European town fall back on, and they use that as a way to get to the truth on how the lord of a certain manor died. And I love it. If anybody can watch that, that's great. Tell me about some of the others in the book.
Well, there's Black Sunday, which was Mask of the Demon, or La Machera del Demonio, with Barbara Steele. That was her first.
Right.
That was her first film. 22-year-old Barbara Steele as Asia and Katya, Princess Arza and the demon Katya, who is a vampire who comes back to take her soul, to make it back into the family. And the main the vampire in that is Yavutic. Now, he is Arza's, Katya's brother, and there was talk that they died through incest as well. They were having incestuous relationships, and they were burned at the stake as witches, and they rise as vampires. Now, that was Mario Bava's first movie, and it set the seal for all the types of vampires that he used to use. They were conjured through witchcraft, and again, like Carl Dreyer before him, they harked back to the old one, the devil, who was by their side and urging them forward, and basically taking over the land. And that plot device has totally been wiped free from cinema today, and it should really be brought back in. I think the last couple of films to use it effectively were City of the Dead, Horror Hotel with Christopher Lee, and Witchcraft with Don Sharp in 1964 with Lon Chaney Jr. They used that similar symbolism that Bava used and got away with it. But those three films are sort of like a triptych to watch together, because they all use the same kind of stamp for their monsters, and they're three amazing films, and you won't go to sleep after you've watched them. And what other films are in that book now? Because I haven't got a copy of the book with me. I can't find it.
Yeah.
I know I had one. But,
what was the one? What is the one? And I'm trying to remember it. Where Defoe plays the vampire, and it's
Willem
a kickback
Dafoe.
to William Dafoe, right?
Yeah. That
was neat, right? That was neat because they actually hire the vampire to play himself, and he gets himself looped. Yeah, he gets himself drunk, and then he starts bitching about how lonely it is and how it sucks to be him and everything. Meanwhile, people are starting to go missing from the crew of the movie. That was a funny one. I really rather liked that. Why do you think they started dressing him up in glitter and making him sparkly and not scary anymore?
Do you know? I'm not really sure. I think it's something to do with bringing the lost love element really to the fore and making it become cloying and silly. The vampire story in itself is silly. The ones that we like, well, I like and enjoy, are like inversions of the Christian myth. They rise after 3 days, they take the soul and everything else. But this sparkly business, I can't get my head around it at all. I really don't know what to say about it, to be honest.
It kind of started with the interview of a vampire, didn't it? Didn't it kind of kick off there?
Yeah, and Rice possibly began it all. You probably hit it on the head there. I think it was Frank Langella that started it all, or Langella, because when an interview with the vampire came out, the book version I had was like a painting of Lewis, but it looked like Frank Langella. And I think that Miss Rice based her characters especially Lestat de Leoncourt, on the Baron Meinster in Brides of Dracula. And I think Lewis was a very faint copy from Frank Langella in the 1979 Dracula movie. It was all about romance and all about, aching hearts and things like that. And, okay, it works, but especially in Queen of the Damned, I watched Queen of the Damned, and to be honest, there's a lot of visuals happening, there's a lot of vampirism, there's a lot of goth and things like that, but there's no substance to any kind of story. It's supposed to be some kind of a journalist investigating this Lestat. But that's it. It all gets lost. It all gets lost in the telling through remarkable visuals. And if you read Anne Rice, which, to be honest, apologies to all Anne Rice fans, but I try and steer clear. I got halfway through Interview with the Vampire, and that was enough for me. But she could have really started the whole ball rolling for this goth-type sparkly culture that we have now in the vampire story.
Vampire stories go back to the 1800s and further behind. Dracula wasn't the first one, but everybody understood that the biting was, just a visual for, intercourse, and it was very erotic. You're talking about somebody posed over a girl, and her best friend finds this creature, and I have to tell people, you have to read the original book, Dracula, by Bram Stoker. Get the original book, and go back. There's some others, and I'm brain dead right now. I can't think of them that are back even further. But this is a creature. When he goes after Mina and Lucy, it's because he's pissed off that they're going to try to stop him now. Harker has gotten back to England, and he knows that, something's been going on. So now, in retaliation, he goes after Mina. It's not that she looks like his ex-wife, or there's none of that. The movie with Frank Langella starts with the ship coming in, which kind of wiped away the whole beginning thing with Renfield, because they just kind of took that whole first part of the book, which is actually something like 4 chapters, I think. That whole first part of the book is eliminated in that movie. But in that movie, they did something that I thought was amazing, and I really liked it, is when he first gets out of the coffin, when, the guy, Renfield, is bringing the carts up. When he first gets out, his boots are shabby, his cloak is all dirty and wrinkled, but as he walks, the illusion starts, because that's the thing with the vampire. He makes you see what he wants you to see. And in the movie, that's the first time I actually saw that happen, is in the Frank Langella movie.
That's right. The idea, I am no expert, I just know as much as the next man, but the idea behind the vampire is, he does appear, evil is always attractive. It is always attractive, but, that must be what draws millions of people like us to the theatre, to the cinema. I go to see the monster. That is all I go to see. I don't care about the underlying love element or anything like this. I go to see the monster bust heads, if you like. And now it started in the Mid-Hammer series, where I think it was Dracula's Risen from the Grave. You had your violent vampire in Christopher Lee, but the story centered on the young leads for the first time. And basically, young leads at that time were very forgettable. Who really remembers the young leads in the Bela Lugosi Dracula? I know them because I'm a geek, but there's a lot of people who've never heard of them.
To Helen Chandler in that, right?
In 1968, Hammer started concentrating on the young leads. And now this concentration has become the focal point of the movie, which is very harmful to it. You go to see, as I said, I go to see the monster, and the monster has to be a monster when everything's all said and done, and it must be explained that he is a monster and not some kind of dark gothic lover. It doesn't hold water, doesn't that? And it does send a pretty frightening message when it's all boiled down to basics.
It blurs the line, because you're looking at this this creature as now, well, it isn't so bad. It blurs the line. And it also, I think that a lot of young people are starting to get the idea that these are real. Where when we read the books and when we saw the first movies, we knew there was nothing that was coming back every night, that nothing was beating in the heart and everything. We knew it wasn't real. But a lot of these people, and I have to say this, Facebook, somebody posted a picture of a bunch of women in their 40s actually gushing and going nuts over some of the cast of Twilight. And they said if this was 40-year-old men doing that over some young singer, they'd be getting called pedophiles.
Yes, they would. Well,
so it's blurring a lot of lines. Yeah, it's blurring a lot of lines.
If you watch the original series of True Blood, I'm talking about the first 6 episodes or anything like that. All these issues were addressed, and they did it really well. Because, like you just said, if it had been 4 men in the 40s over a young girl, it would have been known as paedophilia. It was 4 women, so they get away with it. And it goes about how our societies are structured these days. There are things you just can't do anymore. I watched a film tonight. Actually, it was Charles Bronson, Death Wish, and it just showed you how violent and how really bad those times were. I mean, I'm talking 1974 when that was made. And a film like that to make on that sort of concept now is impossible, because we have all these ultra-hyped action movies, where the hero just takes his gun out and shoots anyone anyway, he doesn't really care. But at the time Death Wish were made, it was the first of its type, or one of the first of its types. We just had Dirty Harry and we'd had Targets. Maybe Targets started it off with Boris Karloff. And everything after that just sort of hypes on and hypes on and hypes on. And this is the same with the vampire thing. And when they make a vampire movie now, they really do need to think and sit back and address these issues in their mind first before they put them to paper. Because if you're showing something on a screen, and I always say this, if you mention something by name, or if you show it on a screen, it's always an advert. It doesn't matter what happens, it's always an advertisement for that particular person or particular act. And they should really shuffle it about before they commit it to paper and before they start printing film on it. They should think about what is actually wrote in that scenario, and then see if it's going to damage or if it's going to be damaging or whatever. There should really be a clean-up in that area, I think, especially with the vampire tale. Because the vampire, at the end of the day, is a demon, is a bloodsucker. His soul isn't real. It's like Superman. Lois Lane is in love with Superman. What is that all about? Superman is an alien from Krypton. Only the good Lord knows what he's like inside, and that's what we're playing with here. We're playing with this suspension of disbelief, and children aren't being learnt that in a lot of areas of life, and they should be.
And
to be honest.
Somebody, Smoochie in the chat room, and thank you guys for everybody jumping in the chat room and getting a dialogue going there. She says a lot of these new ones are glorifying suicide because all these young girls, the only way they can be in these movies with the man they love or the female vampire is to die.
Unfortunately, that is one of the ways to become a vampire is to commit suicide through the old legend.
Right, and so these movies, that's not a good thing to be having 12 and 13-year-old girls watching.
No, it's not a good thing at all. It's a very dangerous thing because, you won't come back as a vampire because they simply don't exist.
Right.
and B, you just won't come back at all. What's the sense in doing that? You know, there's no sense at all. A movie is a movie, and that is the thing that's got to be hammered home. A movie is just a movie, and there should be a lot of homework and things done before films like that are actually made.
Yeah, we're going to go to break, but I always think of poor Christopher Lee because in an interview he said he really didn't want to keep doing Dracula, but Hammer Studios kept coming to him and saying, look, it's not going to work without you because you are now Dracula. Lugosi's dead, and everybody looks at you. And, you know, it kind of... being Dracula in a movie or a vampire is kind of like taking on the role of Holmes, Sherlock Holmes. Any actor who's taken that on has been braced into that character. Jeremy Brett, who was in My Fair Lady with, you know, what's her name, Hepburn, or and all them. You know, he was a fabulous actor, but once he got locked in as Sherlock Holmes, nobody wanted to know him as anything else. And Dracula is very much the same.
Yep, you have five major characters. Is it five major characters? You have Superman, you have Dracula, you have Sherlock Holmes, you have James Bond, and you have Robin Hood. Now, once an actor takes those on, it is either a make or break situation for their career. It's as simple as that. Dracula has made careers and it has typecast people. Bela Lugosi died typecast and in poverty because he couldn't get anything other than Dracula parts. Christopher Lee hates the fact that Dracula has overshadowed loads of great work. He's done all kinds of things with Christopher Lee. And Dracula still overshadows that. He's never going to shake that image, regardless of how old he gets. I mean, it looks great. He's 90, I think he's 91.
He's 91.
He's 91. He looks fantastic.
I dedicated a show to him the other week, and he, with his rock music.
Yeah.
91, and he's got heavy metal music. What the heck?
He's brilliant, isn't he? There's actually a poll that he should get an honorary Oscar. I'm not too sure if I agree with that, but he should certainly get some kind of an award for going as long as he has, and for carrying this burden of the last great horror star, because he is the last one. There won't be any more.
I have to say, whatever I've seen him in, he carries the movie well, and I can't wait for Night Train to Lisbon to come out. Jeremy, whatever his name is, Irons is in it, and I'll still go to see it. Don't you love the way I know all these guys? You know, I know Christopher Lee. I would
that was you reading the film guide, and we got Dave on here with Sean, whatever. We Gert, whatever, Goldfinger, whatever. I would love to see this if you were the TV guide.
That's about it. That's how impressed I am. But I know Christopher Lee, and you know, I think that he should get some kind of Lifetime Achievement Award, definitely, because he was great in Lord of the Rings, and at his age, he remembers the lines, which is amazing. I can't remember if I had tea this morning, you know, but this guy, he's still cooking, and I do believe he should be honored by the Academy for his work. I mean, he's been prolific, he's made movies, and I will go see Night Train to Lisbon, even though Jeremy Irons is in it, because there's a little snippet of Christopher Lee in it, and I really want to see him. So we're going to go to break and pick this up now that I've put my foot in my mouth about 10 times with actors' names. So God help me if I ever get one of them on. The good news is Sean Connery, he's got Alzheimer's, so he won't remember this show.
Excuse me, you're talking about one of our national treasures.
I know. I'm telling you something. I don't care if he's got Alzheimer's or not. He is a hot-looking old man. And we're going to play. It's a 9-minute clip, but this is really an interesting clip because it's Dracula's first meeting, and it's a comparison of different movies. And you have to remember these are snippets from the movie. So you're going to hear Bela Lugosi meeting Jonathan Harker. Then you're going to hear Christopher Lee in 1958 meeting Jonathan Harker. And he sounds like a pansy. He doesn't have the deep...
sounds like a charming aristocrat.
He's got a nasally kind of voice. He doesn't have the deep voice. The second one is Christopher Lee in 1970, and it's the same idea. It's a remake, and he's meeting Jonathan Harker, but he's got the deep Christopher Lee voice. And then Jack Palance, then Louis Jourdan, Klaus Kinski, Gary Oldman, and Mark Werner. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different movies in popular culture, Dracula, where he's meeting Harker for the first time when Harker goes to his castle. And I thought this was just a crackerjack comparison, so I snagged it for the show tonight, and I hope you guys are really going to enjoy it.
There's no place like home. 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 There's no place like home.
This is Mo inviting you to visit me at my lair. Mo Banshee's Lair Visionary Talk Radio airs every Tuesday night live on GCRinternetradio.com. Tune in at 9 p.m. Eastern Time Zone. Topics A to Z, Mo Banshee's Lair on GCR Internet Radio. We're rocking your world.
Just try to stay out of my way. Just try. I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
I am Dracula.
Oh, it's really good to see you. I don't know what happened to the driver and my luggage and with all this, I thought I was in the wrong place.
I bid you welcome. Listen to them, children of the night. What music they make. The spider spinning his web for the unwary fly. The blood is the life, Mr. Renfield.
Yes.
Mr. Harker, I'm glad that you've arrived safely.
Count Dracula?
I am Dracula, and I welcome you to my house. I must apologize for not being here to greet you personally, but I trust that you have found everything you needed.
Thank you, sir. It was most thoughtful.
It was the least that I could do after such a journey.
Yes, it is a long journey.
and tiring for you, no doubt. Permit me to show you to your room.
Thank you, sir.
Now, please, allow me. Unfortunately, my housekeeper is away at the moment. A family bereavement, you understand.
Yes, of course, sir.
However, I think you will find that everything has been prepared for your comfort.
How soon may I start work, sir?
As soon as you wish. There are a large number of volumes to be indexed.
Welcome to my house.
Count Dracula.
I am Dracula. Enter freely and of your own will. It is late, and my servants have gone to bed. I will see to your comfort myself.
Oh, good evening. I'm Jonathan Harker. I'm sorry if I've kept you waiting.
Welcome to my house. Enter freely and of your own will. I am Dracula. I bid you welcome, Mr. Harker.
Thank you. For a moment I thought that perhaps nobody would...
Welcome to my house, Mr. Harker. Come freely, go safely.
Count Dracula?
I am Count Dracula. Will you come in? And please, leave here some of the happiness you bring.
No, allow me.
I insist. You are my guest. It is late, and the servants are not available at this hour. Close the door. Follow me.
Thank you.
Dracula?
Ich bin Graf Dracula und heiße Sie in meinem Schloss willkommen. Ich habe Sie erwartet. Sie sind Jonathan Harker.
Ja?
Treten Sie ein. Die Nacht ist kalt und Sie müssen müde und hungrig sein.
Welcome to my home.
Enter freely of your own will and leave some of the happiness you bring.
Count Dracula? I am Dracula.
And I bid you welcome, Mr. Harker, to my house. Come in. You will, I trust, excuse me that I do not join you. But I have already dined, and I never drink wine.
Hello? Guten Abend, mein Herr. Ich heiße Jonathan Harker.
I know who you are.
Well, then you'll know I have an appointment with Count Dracula.
I am Dracula.
Pleased to meet you, sir.
You must be hungry.
Yes, very tired.
And you must eat. We have much to do. You have something for me. From Mr. Singleton.
Yes, from Mr. Hawkins, my employer, Bishop State London, sir.
Hawkins.
The people they had with them. Yeah.
Okay, we've been talking in the background. I hope everybody enjoyed that. You had a lot of the really popular Dracula movies there, and the meeting between Harker, and I still am stunned about the difference in the voice of Christopher Lee from '58 and then the '70s. With his voice changes from that nasally kind of, well, welcome, and then suddenly you've got, hello, I'm Dracula, whoa, what happened? The boy grew up,
I don't think he would have really talked like that, to be honest. I think it was recording. I think it was the recording technicals that they used at the time. It's like when you see an old colour picture in the 50s, and they're like painted over the pictures. Today it's all splash and it's all there. I think it was the recording value of what they were using, and that's why his voice sounded lighter than it did.
We're breaking up a little bit, but everybody has to remember that Charles is in England, so we're doing this a really long distance. This is really long distance.
Am I coming through all right?
Yes, you're coming through now. It might just be that the load with listeners and that, so it's just getting a little heavy. But before we go on, Charles Butler on Amazon, he has his books on there. I'll be putting the links up with the podcast too. Vampires Everywhere, The Rise of the Movie Undead. You can get a Kindle edition for $3.99 on it, and I guess you can play it on Kindle Cloud Reader. I guess if you don't have
it can fit any Kindle form, iPhone. You can download a Kindle to your PC for free through Amazon, I'm not sure about this, but I think I put it into the Amazon Prime, where you can actually read the book for free. You can download it like a lending library. So I think all 3 books are like that too. You can download them through the lending library, so you don't have to pay for them, which is always a bonus. I just want people to read them and enjoy them, basically. Can I just say some thank you to a few people? Would that be all right?
Okay, but first I want to say something. The artwork is yours in the book.
It is, yeah. I did that because of copyright reasons. I was an independent publisher, and if I'd have gone for photographs, there would have been copyrights for certain companies and this, that, and the other. I couldn't afford it. I was unemployed. I was writing in a fit of pique. And then my brother suggested to me, why don't you draw the pictures? I says, I can't draw the pictures. They're not good enough. I'm not good enough. So I says, I'll give over. It says, draw and find out. So I drew the original Max Schreck looking out of his coffin, and it was at that time, that particular point when I saw the finished product, that I said, I'm going to publish this book. I had no intention of publishing anything until I drew that picture of Max Schreck. And then I sent it to 48 different publishers, and I got 48 different rejections, but not one of them said that the books were bad. They said they were well put together. They carried you through with a pleasing voice. They could sell the books. They couldn't sell the author because I wasn't known. So I eventually went to independent and published it myself. And I still publish myself, and I think I'll publish myself all the time because I enjoy it. And I don't look to deadlines. I can do it. It can take as long as I want. I have 2 more books in the pipeline. One is called Vampires Under the Hammer, which is the next one I'm starting about, the Hammer Vampire, the Christopher Lee stories, the Ingrid Pitt, Carl Miller stories, and Werewolves, the Children of the Full Moon, taking the story of the Wolfman from the 1935 Werewolf of London through to the 2009 version, The Wolfman, with Benicio del Toro. Those 2 books are the next on the list to be completed, and hopefully again they'll be going through Amazon and CreateSpace. And I'd like to personally thank a gentleman called Joseph J. O'Donnell, who saw my original illustrations on Facebook and gave me a spot in his magazine, The Eerie Digest, which really started the ball rolling for me on the internet. And it was through him that I got my first bout of sales when they saw the articles I was putting into his magazine. And that he publishes The Eerie Digest, and he also publishes a magazine called Team. They're both Hollywood celebrity magazines, and they're really good reads. He interviews some really interesting guests. Yep.
Well, I'm glad you wrote it, because it's an interesting book. Anybody who's interested in the cinema, and we do love the old, monster movies and the vampire movies. You're really going to enjoy reading the book Vampires Everywhere movie, Undead, and I'm going to be getting the other ones as well. I mean, you kind of put your own spin on it, what you thought was right and what you thought was wrong with the movies, right?
Yes, that's what I do, yeah. What I tried to do, basically, I once read, and I think it was in a Kim Newman book, I once read that a good reviewer isn't someone who tells you what's great, what's bad, and what's indifferent about a film. A good reviewer just tells you what you've seen. And that is basically what I tried to do with my books. That's what I try to do. Just basically try to tell people what they've seen. And it's a make your own mind up scenario. Which is, to me, is the best way to find out about movies. When I wrote the Romance of Dracula, I wrote a book that I would like to read, and that is what I do first and foremost. I think to myself, well, what kind of film would I want to watch? So I make a film that I would want to watch. I write for myself, I draw for myself, and I make films for myself. If I'm happy with the end result, I know that someone else will be as well. It's just I can't really go into the depths of saying it's psychology and all this, but basically that's what it is. If I enjoy something, I know somebody else will. It's just like I'm like the next man on the street, and that's how I write. I write to please myself.
We were talking during the break about a million things, but the actors, like Boris Karloff and Christopher Lee, and how very humble they are. They're very nice men, and of course, you know, being an actor, being an entertainer, or a public figure of any kind, you know, there is the person that the public sees, and then there's the person that your kids see, you know. So, you know, they're two different things. But by all accounts, these two men, for being ruthless in horror movies, and for Christopher Lee being one of the meanest Draculas there were, you know, and all, they seem to be very approachable and very nice people, and we were saying it's so hard, because once you get in that, locked in that Dracula kind of thing or horror stuff, Christopher Lee has managed to do really well, but we were saying that you said you don't think he should get a Special Academy Award Lifetime Achievement. I do.
He should have some kind of an achievement. I mean, simply for still standing. That's how I look at it. He has done.
He can remember his name. He gets an award.
The man has a career that an actor in the 20s would have been proud of. I mean, they did films in the 20s. They were doing films every week, not every year. They were doing films, 2 weeks for a movie, and they went straight on to the next one, the next one, the next one. John Carradine had the longest running CV in cinema history, and I think it reached to nearly 800 films. Now, Christopher Lee, I imagine if you count his probably would be about similar. And for an actor to do that much in today's modern world, as opposed, I mean, they're not crank them out quick as on Poverty Row. They're proper, what's that word? They're proper big budgeted movies, and they take time. You know, they're thought about, they're written, they're everything else. And to have as many films like that in your CV or your resume is an amazing achievement.
It is.
Over 20 years. I mean, I've done more stage than film and TV. On stage, I've been on stage about 63 plays, 63 involvements. I call them involvements because I go from a play to a murder mystery event to, Last Tango in Paris or something like that, something stupid like that. So I call them involvements. I've had about 62 involvements in 20 years. 20 years February just gone, actually. And for Christopher Lee, since 1947, his first part was when he gate-crashed Hamlet with Laurence Olivier. So from 1947 to 2007, that's 60... So he's been doing it 66 years, is my math correct there? And he must have made about 800 films. So how does that average out? How many films a year does that average out to? Because he has made loads and loads of appearances on screen, and he should get some kind of an award for that. I don't argue with that one at all. He should get something. You know, it should be have a nod of something.
Yeah, my first exposure to him was we had a weekly show, One Step Beyond, and he was an actor in it that there was supposed to be a scene where the actor comes out, but when he comes out, he was actually the ghost of him because he had been killed, and he whispered to them where the address was and all, and that was my first time of seeing him, and he was a very good-looking young man. I mean, you know, what's not to like about Christopher Lee? You know, he's 6'5" and built like tomorrow. You know, really, you know, but all these guys. The one movie that we love but got really nowhere was The House of Long Shadows, and John Carradine was in that. Vincent Price. Yeah, Desi Arnaz's kid was in there, and Lee was in there, and Price's wife was in there, I think, as the sister. That was a funny movie. It was a great movie, and it was a tip to the old masters, you know. But when you watched it, you sat there and said, "Oh my God, you know, they've never gotten out of that," and yet they've all done so much more. And this is always where we come back to.
House of the Long Shadows is good because they're put through the paces that everyone knows them by. You know, Vincent Price comes on doing the Poe, dressed like Edgar Allan Poe with the hat and the long cape. Peter Cushing's there, and John Carradine. But the film, for my money, the film doesn't really pay off because they're all actors. You know, they have to dress up to frighten him out of writing his book, which is the basis for the film. And it doesn't pay off for me at the end. But it is fun to watch. It is fun to see the old stars go through the paces. And I like when they said to Christopher Lee, "How did the director direct the film?" And Christopher Lee says, "He didn't." Which basically sums it up for me.
Actually, at the very end of it, the whole bottom line, and I'm going to give it away. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. It's cute. Is that he made up the whole thing, even about the actors at the end, when at the end, if you watch it all the way to the end, he made all that up too. That was the story he wrote, you know. So it kind of worked for me at the end. It was good. I enjoyed it. I like
based
when
on George M. Collins' story, The 7 Keys to Baldpate.
Right. Yeah. Because that's the name of the, that's okay, but that's the name of the mansion they're in. He's looking for Baldpate. But Vincent Price gets a good giggle out of there because the sister is singing, and then the guy, whoever the murderer is, wraps the piano cord around her throat, and he says he must have heard her singing. Well, you can take that two ways. He either killed her because he heard her singing and knew where she was, or he killed her because she was singing. And it's kind of a good giggle in there. They all had some pretty good giggles. I mean, John Carradine, he had to be like, I don't know, 95 when he was doing that, for God's sake. But it was a funny. One of the movies that I love is Horror Express, where Cushing, another great actor, another great.
You know.
Are you? Yeah. They look in their eyes to see if they're possessed by the creature, and he says, "Well, are you possessed? We're British." Like, no, that couldn't happen because we're British. It's a funny movie.
It is one of my all-time favorites, Horror Express. It's just got that right edge of silliness about it. You know, the monsters there, the heroes are there, and everything's into confusion. You know the monster is going to get it at the end, but it causes chaos while he's there, and it's a great film. That is a horror film. That's how it should be made. That's how they should be made. Now everybody gets wrapped up in technical effects and everything else, but Horror Express is one of the best.
You know, Hammer really had a conglomerate back in the 60s because America stopped laying off all those movies, and so you know, England took over, and they just went bang, you know, and started knocking out everything they could possibly knock out. I know Lee was also on the Avengers a couple of times in the original Avengers series, which was, God, I love that series. That's one of the few series that popular demand made them bring it back.
Yeah.
They took it off the air, and then they had to bring it back because people loved it so much. The Avengers, and you know that's you have to do Boris Karloff for me now, please.
I have to do Boris Karloff for you. Now, what do you want me to say as Boris Karloff?
I don't know. Say something about the Grinch. I don't know.
I don't know the Grinch. Oh, no,
you don't know it? Oh, my God. Okay, don't worry about it then. During the break, Charles spoke like Boris Karloff and Vincent Price, and he floored me. I
like House of Long Shadows, where Vincent Price comes in and he goes, "I have returned."
Yes,
I love that
with
bit.
the hat and all. Yes,
he also says to Ian Ogilvy in Witchfinder General, he says to the girl, he says, "Sarah, I'm going to place this iron on your back. Should you faint or cry out, we can only take it that Satan has intervened to spare you your agonies. However, I could show mercy if Captain Marshall were to confess to witchcraft first. Well, will you do it, sir?" And that's all you're getting.
Wow. My favorite, I gotta tell you, I'm a weirdo. I know it.
Mm-hmm.
But A House on Haunted Hill, where he says, "My wife," she's so amusing. I love that movie.
She's so amusing. Yes, I know that one.
I love that. He is so funny. Yes, I love all those old movies. And I guess we loved them because we knew they weren't real, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. They were fun. They were made for fun for an hour and 15, an hour and 30 minutes. And William Castle especially, he used to wire his seats up to give electric shocks to make out that the people had been scared in the seats. And he had that fad for having a nurse at the exits in case anyone fainted, and passing out $10,000 if you died of fright and things like that. He was a showman, was William Castle, and he used it to the hilt. It was amazing.
Yeah, we had his daughter on. Yeah, his daughter was on, and she was you're okay. But his daughter was on, and she said he loved the shtick, the show. You know, he was all about being gregarious, you know, and almost like a barker at a carnival, you know. Hey, come on and see the woman with the beard. You know, he loved that stuff. And now it's very serious. We're going to run a little late on our commercial, but you had mentioned I'm going to try to remember his name and stay in whatever. Benicio del Toro. What did you think of the new Wolfman movie?
I liked it. I did. I did too. In fact, I'm going to upset a lot of Universal fans here. I thought it was the better film out of the two. I liked it better than the original. I do enjoy it because it makes a nod to all those Paul Nashes, to our own Curse of the Werewolf, and also it goes back to the Lon Chaney film. It's not an impeccable movie. There are faults with it, but in all, it's a better handled movie than the first one. I like the Wolfman with Benicio del Toro.
Yeah, I love when the father says, "Lawrence, I'm sorry. I don't know if you believe that or not." Yeah, you just ratted him out.
The only thing with that Wolfman, when I read the synopsis of it before when it was at the cinemas, I never went to see it at the cinema. I just read the poster, who was in it, and what it was about, and I knew the whole film. I knew that Anthony Hopkins was going to be the Wolfman. I knew this and the other. I just knew how that film was, and when I put it into the DVD player, I wasn't disappointed. It was exactly the sort of film I knew it was going to turn out to be. Just a really good film, a really well-crafted horror movie.
Yeah, you got to do a new book about werewolf movies now.
It's not out yet. It's going to be a while, but it is coming together. But as I say, that's the fun of being an independent author. You've got all the time in the world. You don't have to do deadlines. You can just keep telling them it's coming, and it'll be there eventually, you know. But I will be knuckling down and finishing them, obviously. I've got Vampires Under the Hammer next, which is the one I'm working on now with gusto. I really am putting the hours in on it now. And that is about every vampire film that Hammer Films made from 1957 to 1960 74. The last one being The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. The first one being Dracula, Christopher Lee. And it takes you right through all. In fact, those films are the ones that shaped me as I am today. You know, my outlook on cinema and things.
You're so fractured like me. I think it was wonderful. I think it was wonderful. I think we learned, you know what? I think we learned compassion from those movies. I always cried when Godzilla had to be destroyed. And I got mad when King Kong got knocked off the Empire State Building, and I liked the Wolfman. I felt sorry for him, and the Phantom of the Opera, Claude Rains. What an actor! You know, he broke your heart. You know, he was living on nothing, trying to get this girl whom they were going to do a sequel for that movie, but something happened and they never did. Where he was going to come back, he hadn't been killed. Those movies taught us compassion for people who were different, I think.
They did. That's what they taught. The same thing goes for comic books. I mean, both horror movies and comic books have been spat upon because they're bad for children, this, that, and the other. But comic books and horror movies were the things that really raised me. I mean, I lost my dad when I was 7, and I lost myself into fantasy then. That's when it happened. You know, I understand all that. And as a child growing up, I was watching all kinds of horror movies. It didn't turn me into a mass murderer or anything like that. It just got me into a love of cinema, and possibly the two greatest mediums ever that we'll ever have, the comic book and the movie, the cinema. What was wrong with that? It taught me how to read, it taught me how to talk, it taught me a lot of things about knowledge and things like that. And I knew a lot of things through those things before I went to school. I mean, I was late going to school because of my illness, and now I was and everything. And as I say, comic books raised me in that sense. They gave me my practical knowledge, they gave me all kinds of things. And watching films and things, I learned things through films, through listening to the dialogues and everything, you know. I don't mean that I watched Frankenstein and wanted to go chop somebody's head off, but I did learn a lot about science and things like that. Yeah. You know. Yeah. And now the way that science is actually going, where people can get a new hand, they can get a new head. I mean, that to me is scary. It kills the Frankenstein image straight away, you know. But that is how I was raised.
There's that old saying that all the new stuff we have, cell phones and everything, is because of Star Trek. You know, they made all the phasers and Beam Me Up, Scotty, and all of that, you know. So the movies, you know, they did. The new movies, I just think that they're starting, especially these vampires, where all the girls are falling in love with these vampires and want to be with them, and there's unrequited love and all this nonsense. I think that it's dangerous when you've got 12 and 13 and 14-year-old girls who think, well, they think that's real life. They're confusing it with real life, and then they see their mothers drooling over these fops, you know, and you sit there and think, what the hell is wrong with you? You know, he's an actor. The kid is an actor, you know, and he wouldn't look at you. You're too damn old, you know. It's scary because a lot of these movies are just they're all about sex and not about the monster anymore.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
Yeah, we're going to go to a break, and I'm going to play the last song, which is actually from Dracula with Frank Langella, and then we're going to come back and close because we only have 19 minutes left, so we're almost at the end of the show. We're going live. We're going live. We're back, and I want to make sure Charles tells everybody where they can find all of his books and everything. He's kind of shocked that the 2 hours have just flown by as fast as they have, and usually our guests are. So make sure you tell them where all the books are and where they can find you on Facebooks and everything you need to tell them.
All right. The books are The Romance of Dracula, A Personal Journey of the Count on Celluloid, and Vampires Everywhere, The Rise of the Movie Undead. And they can be found on Amazon at Create Space, and they're available on Kindle Pad and all kinds of any sort of medium you read on these days. You can get these books on there. They can be. I have a link on Facebook under the Horror Unlimited banner from Diabolique magazine, and that has all my links. Every single link, everything that I'm responsible for on Facebook is on there. I have 5 or 6 pages. I have a page dedicated to Count Dracula, a page dedicated to the Monsters of Frankenstein, a page dedicated to the Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, a page dedicated to Basil Rathbone, a page dedicated to Vincent Price, and a page dedicated to James Cagney, who was obviously different from the others, but he did do The Man of a Thousand Faces, so I think I can be forgiven for that. You just join those pages, and they're posted on regularly by my sister Patricia, because I'm always busy trying to write. But basically what I'm doing, I'm sat watching old horror films.
And where is that link?
The links are all on Facebook. Every link you'll find, just go through Facebook and type in The Romance of Dracula, Vampires Everywhere, Horror Hound Unlimited, Diabolique magazine, the Eerie Digest. I've got links everywhere, so you should be able to find me no trouble. If you just type into your search engine The Romance of Dracula, I'll come up somewhere. I always do.
Yeah, that's cool. When I was Googling it, I just put in Charles Butler, and then I put Dracula, and then all kinds of things came up, you know? And that's what you do. There was another movie. Oh, have you guys been hit with the Rest in Peace department yet? It was just released out here. Rest in Peace department. It's the Bridges kid, Jeff Bridges, and he's part of a special police unit in heaven that has to come back and get wayward ghosts. Has that been released out there yet?
That sounds new to me. I'll just Google it. Let me have a look. What do they call it? They call it Rest in Peace Department.
It's RIPD, or Rest in Peace Department. I've seen it, and I have to tell you, it's actually really cute. There's a running gag in it that just doesn't get old, and it's just it's good. It's kind of like a lot of action and stuff. Jeff Bridges is kind of like True Grit, Rooster Cogburn. He kind of is that kind of old-time sheriff that's one of the most famous lawmen ever, and he's in charge of trying to get back all these wayward ghosts that escape from heaven. A lot of good actors in it. Kevin Bacon is in it.
Jeff Bridges, Ryan Reynolds, Kevin Bacon, and Mary Louise Parker. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a good cast. It's silly. It's not, it's not Dracula. It's not serious. It's a lot of fun. But that was just released here, and that's the last movie I've seen. Movies are so expensive to go here. How are they in England?
They're all right. It's like some places. It's like a stormtrooper affair. You have to book a seat in the cinema. You have to. You get searched before you go in case you're taking too many polos in or something like that. It's ridiculous.
Right.
The prices are okay though, but they do insist that you stay at the popcorn counter forever while you buy something. You can't take. The fun has gone. The fun basically. I mean, if you're into your like me, I'm in my 40s now. I can't handle it when I go to the cinema. The last thing I went to see at the cinema was, let me think, what was it? It must have been good. The Avengers Assemble. That's the last thing I went to see at the cinema.
Okay.
And they don't dim the lights right down now either. You can see everybody. And I thought that was a bit disorientating for me. And I don't know if it was an age thing, but the film started and everybody got up to the gents and the ladies, and I thought, well, hang on, they've come to watch a film. You know, I felt like standing up sometimes. I mean, why can't you sit down and watch the movie? That's why you're here, you know.
It's annoying here because for two people to go to the movies now, let's say at night in the evening, you're talking $60 easy $60. You know, so then you go to the early ones, and then of course you get all the bubblegum chewers and the shrieks, and my granddaughter is 17, and she turned around and she says, "Will you shut up? Just shut up. We can't hear the movie," you know. And when you're paying that kind of money, it's just, a lot. A lot of the movies here are going straight to DVD because with the recession, they call it a recession, I call it a depression. A lot of people can't afford to go to the movies anymore here. It's really rough.
I understand that. I mean, over here, I don't know how it was in America, but in Britain, the movie was like for the children. It was something everybody could go see. It was the family thing. You know, you didn't need it. You didn't need to own an housing estate or anything to be able to pay in. And over here they have the old joke. You could go out with half a crown, have a bag of fish and chips, have a pint, have everything, and still come back with change. And that was it when you went to see the movie years ago. Now you go and you have to rob the bank. You know, and that, for me, that is a turn-off because I mean I don't have children myself. But I do have I do have brothers and sisters who have children, and they say to take the kids to a film now is ridiculous. To actually go see a film with the whole family.
It's impossible.
You know,
it's impossible. You can't afford it.
No, and everybody seems to be on that kind of bandwagon to make a fast profit everywhere. You know, for what anything you want to put your children through now, like my nieces, my brother's daughters, they do horse riding, and they make them clean out the stables and do everything for the privilege, you know. And then they take a load of money, and then they take a load of money in the cafe. Then every I mean, I'm only using that as an example, but everything you seem to go into is a big money making thing these days, and I think people have lost focus about where the line's gone between having fun and making money. You know, I understand the fact that a corporation does make money, but there's got to be some kind of a leeway between the two. You know, I stopped going nightclubbing, not because I was too old. I mean, I was only young when I stopped nightclubbing, and I stopped going nightclubbing because I was in the nightclub and I was being forced to enjoy it how they wanted me to enjoy it. You understand? Your personality was taken off because of different ways the nightclub was situated out and everything else, and I stopped going to nightclubs because of that reason. I went out to enjoy myself. I didn't go out to be told how to enjoy myself, you know. And that's the way I look at the world as it is now.
Yeah, we're a bit older, and Teddy is 81, my husband. And when we go in there and they say $5 for a Coke in a movie house, he almost falls over. You know, I mean, I have to get the heart machine moving. It's like, take it easy, take it. You know, he's like, what? You know, what is it? In a golden chalice? You know, what are they serving it to you?
It's so like the old, it is. When they did Woodstock in the 60s. Woodstock was there for the free love and just for people to go and have fun, and it was full of bands who came and gave the time up just to play at Woodstock. And then they had the 1984 Woodstock. 94, and it was like a money-making circus. It was ridiculous.
It is.
You know, I think somebody said it was $5 for a hamburger or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Stupid.
My son went to it, and he says, "Mom, did you go to Woodstock?" I says, "No." I says, "You know, I'm Irish. If I want to run around half naked drunk, I can do that home. I don't have to do it in a cow pasture up in New York. What the hell? I don't need to do that. I'm Irish. I know how to do that. But he went and he said it was so expensive, And I says, well, now it's different. It's a money-making venture. But you're right. Entertainment has gotten very expensive. And I'm worried because I think a lot of people are going to miss out on good stuff, but I really wish somebody would start bringing back these old movies and putting them on the big screen again. I saw Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein in the big theater last October, and Sarah Karloff was there, and it was lovely. They actually got a standing ovation because when you see it on the big screen again, it just mesmerizes you. It's like brand new. And my granddaughter was there with me, and my son had his stepdaughter there, and she was only 6, and she walked up to Sarah Karloff because we were talking, Sarah and I says, "This is Sarah Karloff. She's the daughter of Boris Karloff." And of course Beth is looking up like, huh? And she says, yeah, the man who's dressed up like the monster is my father. And Beth looked at her like, holy crap. It was one of those moments that was beautiful. We just, it was great. And Sarah was like, look at her face. Holy God, that's your father? What does your mother look like? But that they were great movies, and the book is very entertaining. It's your perspective, and I hope everybody buys a copy, gets it off Kindle, reads it, and I hope you write a lot more books for us, okay?
Thank you very much. I intend to write until I go now.
Yes.
I intend to keep on writing.
Call me. Let me know when you've got another one out, and we'll bring you back on, all right?
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure having you on. I've really enjoyed this show. I hope you have.
I have. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. It's Charles Butler. You can find him on Facebook, and I'm going to be putting all the links on the podcast, which will be on Podomatic, and my Mo Banshee I will be putting on YouTube, so you can find all the links there. And I want to thank you so much for coming on, and everybody's saying thank you. Please come back and visit in the chat room. So everybody enjoyed it, and go to sleep now because it's really late there, or early, depending on.
It's my time. What does Ferdinand say in the Roman Polanski film? I am a night bird. I am not much good in the daytime. And that is me. That's me to a T. I'm just waking up now. It's amazing.
Yep. Yeah, me too.
I've really enjoyed this.
Yes, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad it was. This was his first radio interview, so it's good. It's great. It's great. I like that because now you're ready for anything.
Yeah, within reason, of course, but yeah, I think so. I think I'm going to take the world on now. I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay. Okay, I want to, all you have to do is hang up, and I'm going to close the show out. I hope everybody tunes in next week. Next week, we're going to have a friend, an actor, Michael Wright, who's a friend of mine. He's doing a George M. Cohan type of a play, musical. And then we're going to have another person, Eric Von Roth, on, and he's going to be talking about summoning succubuses. If you're having a hard time getting a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you can always summon one of those guys, these succubuses, and I guess send them on their way when you're done. But that's going to be a really interesting show because we have two very different kinds of guests. And with that, I want to thank everybody for coming and listening tonight. I want to thank Charles for being our guest. God bless you all. I love you all.
Where over the rainbow birds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why, oh, can't.
for visiting me at my lair. You can always contact me at www.asylumsgate.com. Again, thank you for visiting, and God bless you and yours.